Homeless man finds a wallet full of cash. What he does with it leaves police speechless. Asterisk, the rain had been falling steadily for 3 days, turning the streets of downtown Seattle into rivers of gray water that carried the debris of urban life toward storm drains already overwhelmed by the November deluge. Marcus Williams pulled his threadbare jacket tighter around his shoulders as he made his way through Pioneer Square, his worn sneakers splashing through puddles that reflected the neon signs of closed businesses and empty restaurants. At 55, Marcus had been living on the streets for 8 months, ever since the construction company where he had worked for 12 years had laid him off due to budget cuts. The unemployment benefits had run out quickly. His savings had evaporated paying for his diabetic medication, and when he couldn't make rent, his landlord had given him 30 days to find somewhere else to live. Those 30 days had stretched into 8 months of sleeping in shelters when he could get a bed, and in doorways when he couldn't. Marcus had always been a proud man, someone who believed in hard work and personal responsibility. The transition to homelessness had been devastating, not just financially, but emotionally. He struggled with the shame of asking for help, the humiliation of being seen as a failure by a society that equated worth with productivity. But perhaps most difficult was maintaining his sense of dignity and moral compass in a world that seemed designed to strip both away from people in his situation. On this particular evening, Marcus was making his way toward the downtown Mission, hoping to secure a bed for the night before they filled up. The Mission served dinner at 6 p.m., and it was already 5:30. If he hurried, he might make it in time for both a meal and a place to sleep that wasn't exposed to the relentless rain. As he rounded the corner near the old courthouse, something caught his eye in the dim light of a street. There, partially hidden beneath a newspaper that had been soaked and plastered to the sidewalk by the rain, was the corner of what looked like a leather wallet. Marcus stopped and looked around, checking to see if anyone nearby might have dropped it, but the streets were nearly empty due to the weather. Marcus knelt down and carefully lifted the soggy newspaper, revealing a brown leather wallet that looked expensive despite being wet. His hands trembled slightly as he picked it up, not from the cold, but from the moral weight of what he was holding. In his current situation, finding money could mean the difference between eating and going hungry, between having shelter and sleeping in the rain. He opened the wallet carefully, and his breath caught in his throat. Inside were several credit cards, a driver's license, and what appeared to be a substantial amount of cash. Marcus counted quickly. There were 23 $100 bills, along with several 20s and smaller denominations. In total, the wallet contained over $2,500 in cash. Marcus stared at the money in disbelief. $2,500 was more than he had seen at one time in months. It was enough to rent a small apartment, buy proper clothes for job interviews, get his diabetes medication, and have enough left over to eat regularly while he looked for work. It could literally transform his life overnight. His hands shook as he looked at the driver's license to identify the owner. The photo showed a well-dressed man in his 40s with kind eyes and a gentle smile. The name read Dr. Jonathan Hayes, with an address in one of Seattle's most affluent neighborhoods. Marcus studied the photo, wondering what kind of man Dr. Hayes was, what his life was like, whether he had a family who depended on him. Marcus closed the wallet and stood up slowly, the weight of his decision pressing down on him like the rain that continued to fall. He could take the money. Who would know? Dr. Hayes probably had insurance, probably wouldn't even miss the cash. Marcus could disappear into the city, use the money to get back on his feet, and no one would be the wiser. But even as these thoughts crossed his mind, Marcus knew he couldn't do it. His mother had raised him better than that. She had been a cleaning lady who worked 3 jobs to support Marcus and his 2 sisters after their father left, and she had drilled into them the importance of honesty and integrity above all else. Your character is the only thing in this world that truly belongs to you, she used to say. Everything else can be taken away, but how you choose to act when no one is watching, that's who you really are. Marcus looked down at the wallet in his hands, then up at the gray sky that showed no signs of clearing. He made his decision, asterisk. Marcus made his way to the nearest police station, a 15-minute walk through the rain-soaked streets. The Seattle Police Department's West Precinct was housed in a modern building that seemed to glow with warmth and light compared to the cold, wet darkness outside. Marcus hesitated at the entrance, suddenly aware of how he must look, soaked, disheveled, clearly homeless. He had learned over the past 8 months that his appearance often determined how people treated him, and police officers were no exception. Taking a deep breath, Marcus pushed through the glass doors and approached the front desk. The officer on duty, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and tired eyes, looked up from her paperwork with the expression of someone who had seen everything the city had to offer. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone neutral but not unkind. Marcus placed the wallet on the counter, water still dripping from his jacket onto the polished floor. "I found this wallet," he said simply. "It has a lot of money in it, and I'd like to return it to the owner." Officer Patricia Rodriguez looked at Marcus, then at the wallet, then back at Marcus. In her 22 years on the force, she had seen plenty of people bring in found wallets, but they were usually well-dressed citizens who had found them in restaurants or shopping centers. She couldn't remember the last time a homeless person had walked in to return something of value. "Where did you find it?" she asked, pulling out a form to document the incident. Corner of 2nd and Yesler under some wet newspaper. Looked like it had been there for a while. Officer Rodriguez opened the wallet to inventory its contents, and her eyebrows rose when she saw the substantial amount of cash inside. She counted it carefully, $2,547 in total, along with credit cards, identification, and various other items. "That's a lot of money," she observed, watching Marcus's face carefully for any sign of deception or regret. Marcus nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Whoever lost it is probably pretty worried about it." Officer Rodriguez had been trained to be suspicious, to look for angles and ulterior motives, but something about Marcus's demeanor struck her as completely genuine. There was no fidgeting, no nervous energy, no signs of someone who was lying or hiding something, just a quiet dignity and a clear sense of having done the right thing. "I have to ask," she said gently, "are you currently homeless?" Marcus straightened his shoulders slightly. "Yes, ma'am. Have been for about 8 months now." "And you found a wallet with over $2,000 in cash, and your first instinct was to bring it to the police." "It wasn't my money," Marcus replied simply. "My mother taught me that taking something that doesn't belong to you is stealing, regardless of your circumstances." Officer Rodriguez felt something stir in her chest, a mixture of admiration and sadness. She dealt with people all day who would lie, cheat, and steal over much smaller amounts of money. Here was a man who had every reason to keep the cash he had found, who could have justified it in a dozen different ways, and instead he had walked through the rain to return it to its rightful owner. "What's your name?" she asked, preparing to fill out the paperwork. "Marcus Williams." "Mr. Williams, I want you to know that what you've done here is extraordinary. Most people in your situation, well, let's just say not everyone would have made the same choice." Marcus shrugged uncomfortably. "I just did what anyone should do." But Officer Rodriguez knew better. In her years of police work, she had learned that true character was revealed not in moments of comfort and security, but in moments of desperation and need. Marcus Williams had faced such a moment and had chosen integrity over personal gain, honesty over opportunity. "We'll contact Dr. Hayes and let him know we have his wallet," Officer Rodriguez said, completing the paperwork. "Is there a way he can reach you too? Thank you personally." Marcus hesitated. He didn't have a phone, didn't have a permanent address, didn't have any of the normal ways that people stayed in contact. "I'm usually at the downtown mission in the evenings," he said finally. "But he doesn't need to thank me. I'm just glad he'll get his wallet back." Officer Rodriguez made a note of the mission's address. Something told her that Dr. Hayes would indeed want to thank Marcus personally, and she wanted to make sure he could find him. After Marcus left, Officer Rodriguez sat at her desk staring at the wallet and thinking about the encounter. She had been feeling increasingly cynical about human nature lately, worn down by years of dealing with the worst aspects of society, but Marcus Williams had reminded her that goodness still existed in the world, often in the most unexpected places. She picked up the phone to call Dr. Hayes, curious about how he would react to the news that his wallet had been found and returned by a homeless man who could have easily kept the substantial amount of cash inside. The phone rang 3 times before a man's voice answered. "Hello, Dr. Hayes. This is Officer Rodriguez with the Seattle Police Department. I'm calling with some good news. We have your wallet." There was a pause, then an audible sigh of relief. "Oh, thank God. I've been looking everywhere for it. I thought it was gone forever." "It was found and turned in by a citizen. Can you come to the West Precinct to pick it up?" "Of course, I'll be right there." "Officer, can you tell me who found it? I'd like to thank them properly." Officer Rodriguez smiled, anticipating Dr. Hayes' reaction. "His name is Marcus Williams, and I think you're going to be very interested in his story." Dr. Jonathan Hayes arrived at the police station 30 minutes later, his relief evident as Officer Rodriguez handed him his wallet. He was exactly as Marcus had imagined from the driver's license photo, well-dressed professional with kind eyes that seemed to reflect genuine warmth and concern for others. "Everything appears to be here," Dr. Hayes said after checking the contents. "The cash, credit cards, everything. This is incredible. I was sure it was gone forever." "Dr. Hayes," Officer Rodriguez said carefully, "I think you should know something about the man who found your wallet. His name is Marcus Williams, and he's currently homeless. He found your wallet with over $2,500 in cash, and he walked through the rain to bring it here without taking a penny." Dr. Hayes stared at her in amazement. "He's homeless, and he returned all this money. Every cent. I've been a police officer for over 20 years, and I can tell you that what Mr. Williams did is extraordinary. He could have easily kept that money and no one would have been the wiser. Instead, he chose to do the right thing despite his own desperate circumstances." Dr. Hayes was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. As a physician, he had dedicated his life to helping others, but he had never encountered such a pure example of selflessness and integrity. "Where can I find him?" Dr. Hayes asked. "I need to thank him personally." Officer Rodriguez gave him the address of the downtown mission. "He said he's usually there in the evenings." "But Dr. Hayes, I should warn you," he seemed uncomfortable. with the idea of being thanked. He genuinely believes he just did what anyone would do. Dr. Hayes shook his head in wonder. What anyone would do, officer? I wish that were true, but we both know it's not. What Mr. Williams did was heroic. That evening, Dr. Hayes made his way to the downtown Mission, a place he had never visited despite living in Seattle for 15 years. The building was old but well-maintained. With a steady stream of people entering for the evening meal service, Dr. Hayes felt out of place in his expensive suit and polished shoes, but he was determined to find Marcus and express his gratitude. He approached a volunteer at the front desk, an elderly woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Excuse me, I'm looking for someone named Marcus Williams. I understand he comes here in the evenings." The woman, whose name tag read Dorothy, smiled knowingly. "You must be the doctor whose wallet Marcus found. He told us about it at dinner. Said he found a wallet with a lot of money and turned it in to the police." "That's right. I wanted to thank him personally." Dorothy's expression grew serious. "Dr. Hayes, I want you to understand something about Marcus. He's one of the most decent men I've ever met. He's been coming here for months, and in all that time, I've never heard him complain, never seen him take more than his share, never witnessed him treat anyone with anything but respect and kindness. What he did with your wallet? That's just who he is." She pointed toward the dining area. "He's over there, at the table by the window. But doctor, please be gentle with him. He's proud, and he's struggling with being in this situation. Don't make him feel like charity case." Dr. Hayes found Marcus sitting alone at a small table, slowly eating a bowl of soup and reading a worn paperback book. Even in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the Mission, there was something dignified about his posture, something that spoke to an inner strength that circumstances hadn't been able to break. "Mr. Williams," Dr. Hayes said softly, not wanting to startle him. Marcus looked up, and recognition flickered in his eyes as he saw the face from the driver's license. "Dr. Hayes, I'm glad you got your wallet back. May I sit down?" Dr. Hayes asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from Marcus. Marcus nodded, closing his book and setting it aside. Dr. Hayes noticed it was a biography of Frederick Douglass, and he was struck by the intelligence and depth suggested by Marcus's reading choice. "Mr. Williams, I came here to thank you," Dr. Hayes began, "but I'm not sure words are adequate for what you did. You found my wallet with a substantial amount of money, and you could have kept it. No one would have known, no one would have blamed you given your circumstances, but you chose to return it instead. That kind of integrity is rare in any circumstances, but in yours, it's extraordinary." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I just did what was right. It wasn't my money, but it could have changed your life." Dr. Hayes pressed gently. "That money could have gotten you off the streets, helped you get back on your feet. You sacrificed that opportunity to do the right thing." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he looked directly at Dr. Hayes, with clear, honest eyes. "Dr. Hayes, I've lost a lot of things over the past 8 months. I've lost my job, my home, my sense of security, but I haven't lost who I am. My mother used to say that your character is the only thing that truly belongs to you, and I wasn't about to give that up for money. That wasn't mine." Dr. Hayes felt tears spring to his eyes. In his medical practice, he dealt with people from all walks of life, but he had rarely encountered such moral clarity and strength of character. "Tell me about yourself," Dr. Hayes said. "How did you end up in this situation?" Marcus hesitated, then began to share his story. The job loss, the medical expenses for his diabetes, the cascade of events that had led to homelessness. He spoke without self-pity or blame, simply stating the facts of his situation with the same quiet dignity he had shown when returning the wallet. Dr. Hayes listened intently, his medical training helping him understand the health challenges that Marcus faced. His human compassion responding to the story of a good man brought low by circumstances beyond his control. "What kind of work did you do?" Dr. Hayes asked. "Constructional. Was a foreman for 12 years, specialized in commercial building projects. I was good at it, managing crews, coordinating with architects and engineers, making sure projects stayed on schedule and under budget." Dr. Hayes nodded thoughtfully. An idea was beginning to form in his mind, but he didn't want to say anything until he had thought it through completely. Dr. Hayes left the Mission that night with Marcus's story weighing heavily on his mind. As a physician, he had taken an oath to first do no harm, but over the years, he had expanded that philosophy to encompass a broader commitment to helping others whenever possible. Marcus Williams had shown extraordinary character in returning the wallet, and Dr. Hayes felt compelled to find a way to help him in return. The money in the wallet had been intended for a specific purpose. Dr. Hayes was in the process of renovating his medical clinic, expanding it to better serve low-income patients in the community. He had been carrying the cash to pay a contractor who preferred to be paid in cash for tax reasons. The irony wasn't lost on him that the money meant to help serve the poor had been returned by someone who was himself in desperate need. Over the next few days, Dr. Hayes couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. He made some phone calls, did some research, and began to formulate a plan. But first, he wanted to learn more about Marcus's background and verify his story. Not because he doubted Marcus's honesty, the man's character had been clearly demonstrated, but because he wanted to understand exactly how he could best help. Dr. Hayes contacted the construction company where Marcus had worked and spoke with his former supervisor, a man named Bill Patterson who had known Marcus for over a decade. Marcus Williams, Bill said when Dr. Hayes identified himself and explained why he was calling. Marcus was one of the best foremen I ever had. Honest, reliable, great with the crews. Never missed a deadline. Letting him go was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, but we just didn't have the work to keep everyone on. What kind of employee was he? Dr. Hayes asked. The kind you wish you could clone. Bill replied without hesitation. He had this way of managing people that got the best out of everyone. The crews respected him because he worked harder than anyone. El Spaniel looked out for them, made sure they were safe, made sure they got paid fairly, and his technical skills were top-notch. He could read blueprints better than some architects I've worked with. Bill paused, then asked, Is Marcus okay? I heard through the grapevine that he'd fallen on hard times, but I didn't know how to reach him. Dr. Hayes explained about the wallet and Marcus's current situation, and Bill was silent for a long moment. That sounds like Marcus, Bill finally said. He always did the right thing, even when it cost him. There was this one time when we discovered that a subcontractor had been cutting corners on materials, using cheaper stuff than what was specified in the contract. Marcus could have looked the other way. It wasn't technically his responsibility, but he reported it because he said it wasn't safe. Cost the company money to fix it, but Marcus said he couldn't sleep at night knowing people might get hurt. This conversation confirmed what Dr. Hayes had already suspected. Marcus Williams was exactly the kind of person he appeared to be, someone whose character had been tested by adversity and had emerged intact. Dr. Hayes's clinic renovation was being managed by a general contractor named Sarah Chen, a woman who had built a reputation for quality work and ethical business practices. When Dr. Hayes called her and explained the situation, Sarah was immediately interested. You're telling me there's an experienced foreman who's currently homeless, and he returned a wallet full of cash instead of keeping it? Sarah asked, and his former supervisor vouches for his work. That's exactly what I'm telling you, Dr. Hayes confirmed. I could use someone like that, Sarah said thoughtfully. I've got 3 projects starting in the next month, and finding a good foreman is always a challenge. But Dr. Hayes, I have to ask, is he reliable? I mean, given his current situation, can I count on him to show up every day? I think his current situation is exactly why you can count on him, Dr. Hayes replied. This is a man who walked through the rain to return money he desperately needed. I think you can trust him to show up for work. Sarah agreed to meet with Marcus, and Dr. Hayes arranged to bring him to the clinic the next evening. When he arrived at the mission, he found Marcus in the same spot as before, reading another book, this time a volume on construction management that he had borrowed from the library. Mr. Williams, Dr. Hayes said, sitting down across from him, I have a proposition for you. Marcus looked up warily. Over the past 8 months, he had learned to be suspicious of propositions, especially from well-meaning people who wanted to help. Too often, help came with strings attached or expectations that were impossible to meet. I'm listening, Marcus said carefully. I'm renovating my medical clinic, and my general contractor is looking for an experienced foreman. I told her about you, about your background and your character, and she'd like to meet with you. Marcus stared at Dr. Hayes in disbelief. You want to give me a job? Because I returned your wallet? I want to connect you with a job opportunity because you're qualified, and because you've demonstrated the kind of character that employers value. Dr. Hayes corrected gently. The wallet incident just helped me understand what kind of person you are. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and Dr. Hayes could see him wrestling with hope and skepticism. Dr. Hayes, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I need you to understand something. I don't have work clothes. I don't have tools. I don't have a permanent address or a phone number. I haven't worked in 8 months, and I'm not sure I remember how to be the person I used to be. Dr. Hayes leaned forward, his expression serious but kind. Marcus, I've spent the last few days learning about who you used to be, and I can tell you that person is still there. Your former supervisor spoke about you with the kind of respect that can't be faked. Your character hasn't changed. You proved that when you returned my wallet. Everything else, the clothes, the tools, the address, those are just logistics. We can figure those things out. Marcus felt tears threatening to spill over. For 8 months, he had felt invisible, worthless, forgotten by a world that had no use for him. Now this stranger was offering him not just a job, but a chance to reclaim his identity, his sense of purpose, his place in the world. Why? Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why would you do this for me? Dr. Hayes thought about his answer carefully. Because you did something extraordinary when you returned my wallet. And extraordinary actions deserve extraordinary responses, because I believe that good people deserve good things to happen to them. And because sometimes, when we help others, we're really helping ourselves. Marcus wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. When do I meet with your contractor? Tomorrow evening. If you're ready, her name is Sarah Chen, and she's expecting someone with your experience and integrity. Don't let her down. Marcus straightened his shoulders, and for the first time in months, Dr. Hayes saw a glimpse of the confident foreman that Marcus had once been. "I won't let her down," Marcus said with quiet determination. "And Dr. Hayes, thank you. Thank you for seeing something in me that I'd forgotten was there." The meeting with Sarah Chen took place at Dr. Hayes' clinic, which was in the middle of a major renovation. Sarah was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who had built her construction company from the ground up, and she had learned to judge people quickly and accurately. When Marcus arrived with Dr. Hayes, she was immediately struck by his bearing. Despite his worn clothes and obvious circumstances, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who knew his trade. "Mr. Williams," Sarah said, extending her hand. "Dr. Hayes tells me you have extensive experience in commercial construction." Marcus shook her hand firmly. "Yes, ma'am. 12 years as a foreman, mostly commercial projects. Office buildings, retail spaces, medical facilities like this one." Sarah led them through the construction site, pointing out various aspects of the renovation. As they walked, she asked Marcus technical questions about load-bearing walls, electrical systems, and building codes. His answers were precise and knowledgeable, demonstrating a deep understanding of construction principles and practices. "What's your assessment of the work that's been done so far?" Sarah asked, curious to hear his professional opinion. Marcus studied the partially completed renovation carefully, his experienced eye taking in details that a layperson would miss. "The framing looks solid. Electrical rough-in appears to be up to code. I'd want to check the HVAC layout against the blueprints. Looks like there might be a conflict with the ductwork and the dropped ceiling in the reception area. Nothing major, but it could cause problems down the line if it's not addressed now." Sarah exchanged a glance with Dr. Hayes. Marcus had identified the exact issue that her current foreman had missed, a problem that could have cost thousands of dollars to fix later in the project. "Mr. Williams," Sarah said, "I'm going to be direct with you. I need a foreman for 3 upcoming projects. The pay is competitive, the work is steady, and I value reliability and integrity above everything else. Dr. Hayes has vouched for your character, and your knowledge is obvious, but I need to know, can you commit to this? Can you be the person I need you to be?" Marcus looked around the construction site, remembering what it felt like to be in charge of a project, to have responsibility and purpose. "Ms. Chen, I won't lie to you about my situation. I'm homeless. I don't have proper work clothes or tools, and it's been 8 months since I've worked in construction. But I can promise you this, if you give me this chance, I will work harder than anyone else on your crew. I will show up every day, I will do the job right, and I will earn your trust." Sarah studied his face, looking for any sign of uncertainty or false bravado. What she saw was quiet determination and genuine humility, qualities that were rare in the construction industry. "The first project starts Monday," she said finally. "Can you be ready?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good, Dr. Hayes. Can I speak with you privately?" For a moment, Dr. Hayes and Sarah stepped aside, and Marcus could see them having an intense conversation. He tried not to get his hopes up, knowing that there were probably complications he hadn't considered, obstacles that might prevent this opportunity from becoming reality. When they returned, Sarah was smiling. "Mr. Williams, Dr. Hayes has agreed to advance you the money for work, clothes, and basic tools, which will deduct from your first few paychecks. He's also arranged for you to stay in an extended stay motel until you get your first paycheck and can find more permanent housing. Are you okay with that arrangement?" Marcus felt overwhelmed by the generosity being shown to him. Yes, of course. But Dr. Hayes, I can't let you do all this for me. It's too much." Dr. Hayes shook his head. "Marcus, you gave me back $2,500 when you could have kept it and changed your life. The least I can do is invest a fraction of that amount in helping you get back on your feet. Besides, this isn't charity, it's a business investment. Sarah needs a good foreman, and you need a job. I'm just helping to make that connection possible." Over the weekend, Dr. Hayes took Marcus shopping for work clothes, boots, and basic tools. It was an emotional experience for both men. For Marcus, it represented a return to his professional identity, while for Dr. Hayes, it was a reminder of how quickly circumstances could change and how important it was to help others when possible. "Keep thinking this is all a dream," Marcus said as they loaded his new purchases into Dr. Hayes' car. 8 months ago, I was sleeping in doorways, wondering if I'd ever work again. Now I'm about to start a new job with a respected contractor. It's not a dream," Dr. Hayes assured him. "It's what happens when good character meets good opportunity. You created this opportunity by being the kind of person who returns a wallet full of cash. Everything else is just the natural consequence of that choice." Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Seattle weather that Marcus had learned to endure during his months on the streets. But now, as he put on his new work clothes and laced up his steel-toed boots, the rain seemed less oppressive. He was no longer someone the weather happened to, he was someone with a place to go, a job to do, a purpose to fulfill. Sarah's construction crew was a diverse group of experienced tradespeople who had worked together on multiple projects. When Sarah introduced Marcus as their new foreman, there was some initial skepticism. They had heard he was homeless, and they weren't sure what to expect. but Marcus's competence quickly won them over. He knew how to read blueprints, coordinate subcontractors, and solve problems before they became major issues. More importantly, he treated everyone with respect, listened to their concerns, and made decisions based on what was best for the project, rather than what was easiest for him. I wasn't sure what to think when Sarah told us about the new foreman. One of the electricians confided to Marcus during their lunch break, "But you know what you're doing, and you treat people right. That's all we care about." By the end of his first week, Marcus had not only proven himself as a capable foreman, but had also identified several ways to improve efficiency and reduce costs on the project. Sarah was impressed, but not surprised. Dr. Hayes had told her that Marcus was special, and she was beginning to understand what he meant. "How are you adjusting?" Sarah asked Marcus as they reviewed the week's progress. "It feels like coming back to life," Marcus replied honestly. "For 8 months, I felt like I was just existing, just surviving from one day to the next. Now I have a reason to get up in the morning, something to contribute, a way to be useful again." Sarah nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. She had built her business on the belief that everyone deserved the dignity that came with meaningful work, and seeing Marcus's transformation reinforced that conviction. 6 months later, Marcus Williams stood in the completed medical clinic, admiring the work that his crew had accomplished. The renovation had been finished on time and under budget, and Dr. Hayes was preparing for the grand reopening that would allow him to serve twice as many patients as before. The clinic would provide affordable healthcare to some of Seattle's most vulnerable residents, including many people experiencing homelessness. Marcus's life had been completely transformed. He had moved from the extended stay motel into a small but comfortable apartment, had reconnected with his adult children who lived in other states, and had even started dating a nurse who worked at a nearby hospital. But perhaps most importantly, he had regained his sense of self-worth and purpose. Sarah Chen had been so impressed with Marcus's work that she had offered him a permanent position as her lead foreman, with a salary that reflected his skills and experience. He was now overseeing multiple projects simultaneously, mentoring younger workers, and had become an integral part of Sarah's team. "You know," Sarah told Dr. Hayes at the clinic's reopening ceremony, "hiring Marcus was one of the best decisions I've ever made. He's not just a great foreman, he's a leader who brings out the best in everyone around him." Dr. Hayes smiled, watching Marcus explain some of the renovation details to a group of visitors. "I had a feeling he would be. Character like his doesn't disappear just because circumstances change." The story of Marcus and the wallet had spread throughout the Seattle construction community, becoming something of a legend about integrity and second chances. Marcus had been invited to speak at industry events about the importance of ethical behavior and the value of giving people opportunities to prove themselves. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. The Seattle Police Department, at Officer Rodriguez's suggestion, had created an annual Integrity Award to recognize citizens who demonstrated exceptional honesty and moral character. Marcus was the first recipient, and the ceremony was attended by dozens of people whose lives he had touched. "Mr. Williams," the police chief said as he presented the award, "your decision to return that wallet when you could have kept the money demonstrates the kind of character that makes our community stronger. You remind us that integrity isn't about what you do when people are watching, it's about what you do when no one would ever know." Marcus accepted the award with his characteristic humility. "I just did what my mother taught me to do," he said. "She always said that your character is the only thing that truly belongs to you, and I wasn't about to give that up for money that wasn't mine." In his speech, Marcus talked about the importance of second chances and the power of human kindness. He spoke about Dr. Hayes, who had seen potential in a homeless man and had been willing to invest in that potential. He talked about Sarah Chen, who had given him the opportunity to prove himself. And he talked about Officer Rodriguez, who had treated him with dignity and respect when he could have been dismissed as just another homeless person. "I learned something important during my time on the streets," Marcus said. "I learned that we're all just one or two bad breaks away from losing everything we think defines us. But I also learned that our true character isn't determined by our circumstances. It's revealed by how we respond to those circumstances." After the ceremony, Dr. Hayes and Marcus sat in the clinic's waiting room, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. "Do you ever regret it?" Dr. Hayes asked. "Returning the wallet? I mean, your life might have been very different if you had kept that money." Marcus considered the question seriously. "You know, I've thought about that a lot. If I had kept the money, I might have gotten off the streets sooner, might have avoided some of the hardship I went through. But I also might never have met you, never have gotten the chance to work with Sarah, never have learned what I was really capable of when my back was against the wall." He paused, looking around the clinic that he had helped to build. "More than that, though, I would have had to live with the knowledge that I had compromised my principles when it mattered most. That money would have been tainted by how I got it, and I don't think I could have built a life on that foundation." Dr. Hayes nodded, understanding exactly what Marcus meant. "You know that wallet contained money that was meant to help expand this clinic so we could serve more people in need. In a way, by returning it, you helped make this possible." Marcus smiled. "Maybe that's how these things work. Maybe when you do the right thing, even when it's hard, it creates ripples that spread out in ways you can't predict. The clinic's grand reopening was a huge success, with hundreds of community members touring the facility and learning about the expanded services that would be available. As the evening wound down, Marcus found himself standing outside the building, looking up at the sign that read Hayes Community Health Center. A young homeless man approached him, clearly recognizing him from the news coverage of his story. "Excuse me," the young man said hesitantly. "Aren't you the guy who found that wallet and returned it?" Marcus nodded. "That's right. I heard you were homeless when you found it. Is that true?" "Yes, it is." The young man was quiet for a moment, then asked, "How did you do it? How did you give up that much money when you needed it so badly?" Marcus looked at the young man, seeing something of his former self in the desperate hope in his eyes. "I realize that who I am is more important than what I have. Money comes and goes, but your character is something you carry with you forever. Once you compromise that, it's very hard to get it back." The young man nodded slowly, as if processing this wisdom. Do you think there's hope for people like us? People who've lost everything?" Marcus put his hand on the young man's shoulder. "Son, I was sleeping in doorways 6 months ago. Tonight, I'm going home to my own apartment. And tomorrow I'm going to work at a job I love, supervising projects that make a difference in people's lives. If there's hope for me, there's hope for anyone." As Marcus walked to his car, he reflected on the strange journey that had brought him to this point. A single moment of moral clarity, the decision to return a wallet instead of keeping it, had set in motion a chain of events that had transformed not just his life, but the lives of everyone around him. The story of Marcus Williams reminds us that integrity isn't just about following rules or doing what's expected. It's about making the right choice even when no one is watching, even when the cost is high, even when we have every reason to choose differently. It shows us that character isn't determined by our circumstances, but by how we respond to those circumstances, and that sometimes the most important decisions we make are the ones that nobody else will ever know about. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that integrity and character matter more than temporary advantage, please subscribe to our channel. We share stories of hope, redemption, and the incredible power of human decency in a world that often seems to reward the opposite. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of people who believe that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, is always worth it in the end.